So let's get into some of the programming stuff, because I was, and Joe, I'll start with you. For years, all we've heard is that you don't want to take away from the primetime audience. And that if you give people too much during the daytime, that they're not going to tune in from primetime. And I guess we were wrong for all this time, but kind of walk us through, what surprised you from that standpoint, and also just sort of the programming strategy, because, it was amazing. Like I was telling you guys earlier, they're in Paris, and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Paris, and Mike Tirico's on the air, right? And I'm like, wait, this is in New York, 1 o'clock, so he's got to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning here in Paris, so what is he doing? And I've heard he just loves to be at the events. He just wants to be part of it, right, I guess? So maybe walk us through the whole strategy of daytime, nighttime, and what surprised you most.
Sure, yeah, and I'm not sure that we were necessarily wrong back then. We can debate that or figure that out, but times certainly change, right?
Right.
So I think when we, we're looking ahead to Paris, and the first thing we always do wherever we are is, okay, what time zone are we in? What's the difference back to the U.S., and then how are we going to grapple with that? And obviously, like you were saying, our traditional 8 o'clock start for primetime, it's going to be 2 a.m. in Paris. Nothing's going to be happening live. So how do we deal with this in the year 2024? And so I think early on, we took some lessons coming out of Beijing and Tokyo, right? Different experiences, different time zone. It's come up here where the Olympics maybe weren't, the experience that everyone was used to because of the circumstances that they had to be pulled off in. So we knew we had to come out strong, and we knew we had to capture people and bring them back and get them excited about the Olympics again. And we made the decision, I think, within months of coming home in 2022 and said, we got to go for it, and we want to be live all day. Because one of the things that we wanted to try to create was, or recreate, was that shared experience, right? So how do we get the best content, the best events in front of the most people as often as possible throughout the day, and let's not worry about potential cannibalization, but let's just go for it. And NBC remains our largest reach platform, right? So it's the place where we can gather the largest audience at one time. So the idea was basically, okay, let's try to have everybody put on a life jacket, get on a boat, and be swept away down a river of great content and storytelling all day long. Like the middle Saturday comes to mind for me, where you kind of wake up and you put on NBC, and there's, gymnastics event finals. There's Simone Biles going for a gold medal in vault, and that's followed almost immediately by the U.S. men's basketball team on their march toward gold. That's almost followed immediately by swimming finals blended with track finals, and you had the women's 100-meter dash and Katie Ledecky going for a 4th straight gold medal in the women's 800 meters, and the way that jigsaw puzzle came together, it was just relentless, right? And it just kept going all day long, and the hope was that we would get people excited enough throughout the day that they would want to watch at night in primetime, even if they knew it wasn't live, and even if they knew maybe what some of the things that happened were, and that got into a bit of the primetime strategy in terms of how we were going to make that show a little bit different.
Yeah, Molly, tell us about the primetime strategy and trying to make that show different.
And as Joe said, we decided to stop worrying about cannibalization, stop worrying about spoilers on your phone. We're going to hope for good news, because good news makes people want to come back and experience it. But it goes back to our foundational belief, from Rune Arledge, from Dick Ebersol, that the Olympics is about stories and people. It's just not a sporting event. And whenever I would talk to people about the Olympics and say, what do you like about the Olympics? It's always the athlete stories, right? It's the athlete up close and personals. And for a long time, we really leaned into doing less over the last 10 years, because our research came back to us and said, when you guys leave live events or you leave event programming, when you go to these studio and features, the rating goes down, then you got to get them back up. Well, in a taped Olympics in primetime, you needed to have that. And so we decided to throw out some of the research and go with our gut, was let's tell really good stories in modern contemporary ways, and let's advance the story in primetime. So even though you may have watched the US men win a bronze medal in the afternoon, more likely you probably didn't, because more than 50% of our consumption is still in primetime. But let's make that experience richer in primetime, because we have 6 hours. So what can we do? Well, we followed the U.S. men's gymnastics team to the reunion spot at a Paris restaurant, and the athletes were mic'd up, and so were the parents. So Amy and our athlete engagement team worked really hard in the year preceding the Olympics that we gained trust with so many of the athletes. So their coaches themselves, their parents were willing to be mic'd up. And I think, to me, that was really one of the keys of this Olympics, was hearing the family joy. So we were all into, we called it surprise and delight. We'll talk about Snoop later, but we leaned into joy. And our marching orders to our announcers was lean into the joy. If you're a fan of Rowdy Gaines, our swimming analyst, you know he lets it all hang out. He's still teaching you a lot, educating you, but you're also along for the ride with him. And we really felt like, as Joe talked about, after the pandemic Olympics, we had to make people fall in love with the Olympics again and remind them that it's a feel-good experience. There can be highs, there can be lows, but ultimately it's really, really reassuring and fun. And so it was just a delight to reinvent the Primetime show, because we really condensed it down to 3 hours. In the past, when we're live, we expanded to 4.5 hours, and that's really hard to keep the audience. And we played along with a lot of different tactics. We had an event of the night that began at 9:50, because Beijing taught me that America goes to bed at 10:17. So how do we get them to stay up till 10:30, 10:40? And so we went with limited commercial interruption, a double box commercial for a minute, once during 30, 40 minutes. Joe was a master, and Mike Eisenstein, our format producer, putting this all together. But we really wanted to make it the best possible experience, and Snoop and families and athlete profiles, I think, were a big part of it. But it was also pacing. As we all know, in content production, pacing is everything, and I thought the team did a really great job with that.